Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the I-51 Emerge UK Masters.
And we are going to be getting into game number 3 of this best of 7 series any second. We're going to be on Frost this time around. It's 2-1 to Tefl. And for those of you just tuning in who missed the memo, Tefl came through the winner's bracket, so he does start with a 1-0 advantage. So that's why it's 2-1 after 2 games, which sounds a little weird, but that's how it is. And that means that Harstem now needs to win 3 to win, whereas Tefl only needs to win 2 to take home that prize of £1,250, aka $2,100.
Which is awesome, awesome times. A lot of money on the line. Both players are ready, so we are starting the countdown into map number 3. And we've seen very contrasting games, map 1 and map 2.
We really have. The first game we just saw Tefl just play extremely aggressive, just roachling, almost all in off 3 base with only 50 workers. Just didn't work for him at all. Tried to break the 3rd base of Harstem over and over, and it just never really worked. Game 2, though, he went for something very, very un-Tefl-esque, and he went for Mutalisks, which just caught Harstem totally off guard. Harstem was not ready for it, and he was able to take the game right then and there.
So, we are getting in now to map number 3. It has started, so let's dive right in and do the player introductions.
And in the bottom left spawn location, representing Fnatic, we have our blue Protoss player. It is Harstem. And spawning in at the top left spawn location, we have our green Zerg player, defending champion of I-Series. It is Dignitas Tefl.
A bigger map, Frost. 4-player spawn map. So, it's going to be interesting to see what these two throw out. I don't reckon we'll see Tefl go Mutalisks again. I feel that was more his, I don't want to say his like outlying build or something that he just goes for as a bit of a whim, but it's something which catches your opponent off guard. And he's done that now. Harstem is going to be sitting here for every game now being like, gotta watch out for Mutalisks. Gotta be aware of it.
I do think with these spawn locations especially, I think we may well just see Roach Hydra Viper out of Tefl, because these spawn locations, if Harstem goes for this 3rd base here, which is the one that's further away from the from his opponent, then he's going to be very open to like Roach run-bys and stuff just to the high ground here, which can just hit against probes, which is something that Tefl's very, very good at exploiting all the time. So this is the kind of map where Tefl's Roach Hydra Viper play that is just kind of staple for him is probably going to be at its best. And I think this actually may have been Tefl's map pick. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was, though. Meanwhile, Harstem, shocker, going to be going for Nexus Gateway most likely. We see the Nexus coming down. He could still go for a Forge, but knowing Harstem and knowing what he's been doing this tournament and this series, almost definitely going to be a Gateway.
He hasn't really been punished for it either, and I'd say, especially game number 1, Tefl had the best position imaginable to try and punish the greedy 3rd that usually comes off the back of this. So by not being able to get that down, I reckon Harstem should be feeling pretty damn confident in what he's doing.
Yeah, Harstem hasn't really had any difficulty with the opening. Even in the last game, which he lost, it wasn't anything to do with his opening. It was just because he just didn't see the Mutalisks coming, just not ideal scouting, and the hidden Spire just was not scouted. It was very well hidden there by Tefl. So, thus far, this opening has been fine for Harstem, so there's no real reason for him to change it unless he has something special planned. Meanwhile, we do have the expansion here for Tefl and the gas. So once again, going for this gas relatively early at about the 3-minute 15 mark. And I assume we'll see the same opening out of him as well, where he just gets that 100 gas, pulls off for the link speed, and just drones up and gets that 3rd probably around the 6-minute mark.
Now, one thing which I'd love to get your opinion on, Penguin, is the 4th base for Tefl. In these spawn positions, I always feel that it's a little bit awkward because you've got a choice of expanding towards your opponent and getting really close, or going all the way over to the right here, in which case you're vulnerable to the play that Harstem's repeatedly shown of a lot of Zealot Warpins.
I think for Tefl's style, if he does go for the Roach Hydra Viper, it's going to be pretty fine for him to take the space, because that's going to mean quicker reinforcements if he's pushing, which he loves to do. He just pretty much loves to just start endlessly pushing once he gets to his preferred composition. So I think he may even take this as his 3rd if he decides to get really aggressive. We'll have to wait and see just what he does opt for, but it's definitely something to consider. It's definitely something we have to watch out for.
Generally speaking, the 3rd base is from Tefl when he has gone for this Zergling speed opening. Come down at around 5 minutes 56-minute mark, so shouldn't take forever to see a 3rd base out of Tefl in exactly which way he wants to go. Meanwhile, from Harstem, he's opening the same way that he's chosen to every other game this series, and actually pretty much every game against Zerg this tournament.
Yeah, he's really
Ooh,
liking this
no,
style.
no.
But we do have him changing it up a little bit. He's going to be getting the gateway at the front again, but instead of a Forge, we have a Stargate coming down. And he's shown us this a couple times as well.
Yep.
And I would expect, from past experience for this tournament, I would expect Phoenixes straight up.
And that wouldn't be a bad choice. It's always quite nice to do. It makes him safe as well from the Mutalisk play later on, which could be why we've seen this adjustment. He got pretty overwhelmed by the Mutalisk in map number 2. So getting the Stargate down means you've got the option, even if you go for an Oracle first, to then go into some Phoenix production should you scout Aspire. But as you predicted, Penguin, Tefl taking this very aggressive, close third base to his opponent.
Yeah, and with this, I think this is pretty much just another telltale sign that we will probably be seeing his staple Roach Hydra Viper play.
Ooh, 12 links coming out from Tefl, or are out for Tefl. He's expecting a third base, I reckon.
He is, because Harstam has been going for relatively early third bases this whole series. A very early third at 6 minutes on Altrazim, and then slightly later 7:30 on Overgrowth. But I don't think we're going to be seeing an expansion that early here because the Phoenixes are not going to really allow for that. But that also means there's not really that much damage output here on the defensive. But with the force fields, these links shouldn't be able to break through. Harstam able to defend that relatively easily. And now these Phoenixes are just going to start poking away at these Overlords, just be able to clear up the map vision here of Tefl.
The robotics facility coming down for Harstam behind this, so he is teching up straight through. This isn't some kind of sky toss build or anything like that. Unfortunately, no mass carriers. But yeah, this is pretty standard stuff out of Tefl actually. He's adding in his Hydra Den now, so he did cancel the Roach one that he did have in production in order to switch into a Ling Hydra composition, which is going to be a lot more effective up against a Stargate Gateway force out of Harstam.
Yeah, definitely, because if you go for the Roaches, if you're being aggressive with them, all of a sudden, if they get 1 or 2 Void Rays out, they do so much damage to Roaches. They just absolutely shred Roaches, as Roaches are armored units. But if you don't go for the, if you go for the Ling Hydra, it becomes a lot more easy to deal with the Phoenixes because you have the anti-air out earlier, and I mean, the Lings don't tank as well as Roaches for the Gateway army, but it leaves more gas to make more Hydras for DPS.
A Queen, a little bit out of position here, will go down to these 4 Phoenix. 4 Phoenix, the critical number you need to be able to kill off a Queen with a single lift. So nicely done there by Harstam. Tefl though, still have 3 Queens and 1 per hatchery in order to inject, but with 2 brought down to the third base, he's missing an inject somewhere.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've also seen from Harstam that's been pretty cool is that he's been using Phoenixes a lot to great effect. Looks like we have a bit of lag issue with our admin, but thankfully that's neither of these 2 computers, so things should be able to continue on.
The admin, of course, located in a different gaming area, so we'll just wait for this to get resolved. Probably going to have to wait for him to drop out, but I love the fact that Harstam is being so active with these Phoenix repeatedly. And he's not overcommitting, just picking off Queens where he can, but also, just taking a look at my game screen, Tefl hasn't made a single Spore Crawler in order to defend against this.
It's kind of interesting, just talking more about the Harstam side of that. Harstam has shown us, particularly against Orc, he showed us a lot of Phoenix play. It was kind of interesting. He had like picture perfect Phoenix control until at the 12-minute mark, and he just flew them into Hydras and died.
Yes.
But for the first 12 minutes, he showed that he can actually control the Phoenixes exceptionally well. He can get up to just so many kills without losing any of them. And what we see here, what we were about to see, which we will see as soon as Mez is out of the game, which is going to be now, he's just controlled this very well. He has 5 Phoenixes, which is enough to just lift both of these Queens, kill them off without losing any of these Phoenixes. Looks like he won't actually get that other Queen, but gets out with all the Phoenixes alive. This guy's surviving with 1 hit point. You almost proved me wrong.
I also want to point out this resource is lost. It's what you see when you go Phoenixes, that a Protoss player actually quite often loses nothing early on because they're just so easy to keep alive while harassing and picking away. So most of the resources lost on Tefl's side, just under 700, going to be mainly minerals, I think only minerals. Still, that's 700 resources down the pan.
It really is. And now Tefl, though, looking like he wants to get very aggressive already. Hydra speed is coming in first, so Groove Spine's not yet researched, which means that he's just going to be able to move across the map much, much faster with these Hydras. He is supply blocked here because of losing a couple of the Overlords. The Phoenix is on the other side of the map. There is 1 Void Ray here. There will be overcharge. Is there enough to hold this is the big question. There's a lot of damage output from those Hydras. Some good force fields coming on down, allowing him to segment off 3 of those, but good control by Tefl as he does go up to the high ground with those units. The Lings have actually died off very quickly. The Mothership Core is sniped, though, which is also very, very nice. More and more Hydras coming on in here, and there's not really that many damage outputting units units here for Harstem. He's got the Void Ray and just a lot of sentries. It's really the overcharge that's doing all the damage, but they are closing the distance here with the sentries. A lot of the sentries are going to go down. The Void Ray goes down. Colossus coming down to the low ground here to try to defend, but without range, the Hydras have the same range as it. They do get its shields off. Tefl trying to make as much happen as he can. He does still have a supply advantage. This is really close.
The most annoying thing that Harstem's lost so far are the sentries. The Colossus, though, getting dangerously low, will get taken out, and Tefl just rallying across the map with this large Ling Hydra force. The third base looking insanely vulnerable. There's only a handful of gateway units here to defend, and Ling Hydra is ridiculously effective against that. The Phoenix finally being brought back, going to be getting some lift on these small numbers of Hydras, but with more reinforcing, the Phoenix are going down too.
They are. A couple of these gateway units have survived low hit points though, and they are going to be able to make the difference to just buy enough time for the second Colossus to come on out. So now this Colossus is out. Still no range as far as I know. Yeah, there's no Colossus range just yet. But Tefl shouldn't be able to break this anymore, but he's still traded very efficiently. He traded very well. He got a lot of sentries. He just got a lot done. He's got a 14 worker lead here. And overall, that's probably going to just spur Tefl on to go towards Hive Tech. Maybe do another pre-Viper push, but we don't actually have the Infestation Pit up yet, interestingly enough.
No, I was just looking at that, and the lack of the Infestation Pit is going to result in his Hive being actually quite late now, considering the Colossus are already there. He needs to have either Vipers or Corruptors to counteract the Colossi. Sure, he can apply a lot of pressure, but once there's kind of 3-4 Colossus on the field, Roach Hydra Ling just can't trade against that.
Yeah, but we do see another cute little move here from Tefl. He's trying to get as good a concave as possible. This also opens the way for him to just go to the high ground, like I talked about earlier, and just pick off a lot of probes. Hydras kill probes so quickly here. Harstem positioning himself in a nice position where he can actually pick off any reinforcements trying to meet up with the main army. Tefl is forced back, but a bit of a dupe there as he's coming back here to that high ground. More of the reinforcements are being engaged by the Phoenixes, lifted up. One of those Phoenixes will go down, with the Hydras not being able to meet up with the main force. More damage being done here at that third expansion, though. Even more workers dying. That's a lot of Hydras that are just going to walk into the meat grinder, though.
And it's annoying losing those straight away. Tefl adding in his Infestation Pit now, though. Going to be looking to go up into that Hive Tech. And it's because that critical mass of Colossi is rapidly getting close to. We've got the third Colossus about to pop out. And this is the stage where, actually, Ling Roach Hydra starts having a lot more trouble trying to engage up against that, as long as there's gateway support. Phoenix in the main getting some nice damage down there.
Yeah, the thing that I find most interesting about Tefl's build so far is that he's only now taken a fourth base in 15 minutes, which says to me that he really, really wanted to break that third of this.
Yep.
He really wanted to just get himself in an amazingly economically superior position. He's not in a bad position, to say the least. He's got a decent number of drones. 62 is not great, but it's not awful. The problem now, though, is that he can't push into this because, as you said, the critical mass Colossi is here. Thermal Lance is on the way. It's not done yet, which means that he can still trade better than he would. But we're going to have to see how Tefl can make this work. He's really going to need to control his army perfectly to get anything done.
Tefl's army supply is hugely greater than Harstem's at 127 to 77. But in Tefl goes. Harstem does have the splash from those Colossi. Gotta keep them alive though. Extended Thermal Lance not yet done, but he's got a big upgrade lead at 2-0 with nothing on Tefl's side. The force fields are good, zoning out a lot of the Zerg forces, cutting through the early lines, but the gateway units now acting as the buffer for those Colossi starting to fall. But so is Tefl's army. He's down to only 70 army supply now, including the reinforcements. Harstem looks like he's gonna hold.
Yeah, a lot of these gateway units did go down, but the real money units, the real damage dealers, those 3 Colossi, those guys survived, and that's the really critical thing here, because that number is just going to continue going up and up and up. There's another one in production. A couple of Vipers will come out, but it gets harder to deal with that number of Colossi, because even if you do land the Abducts, he's just lost a lot of units. It's going to take a lot of time for him to rebuild a scary army. He doesn't have much of a bank here. And by the time he's able to push with like a maxed out army, this Templar Archives is going to be done. You see Tefl trying to push forward with this small army, but he's only at 144 supply, so this is not really all that scary. Harstem is so confident that he's taken a 4th base.
And that 4th base is really going to help Harstem just really enhance his economic lead. He's going to stay on equal bases with Tefl for the most part, which is obviously not what a Zerg player ever wants. But also, the upgrade lead that Harstem's got is just massive, and Tefl isn't really catching up with them. So he needs to find a way to get some great abducts down and utilize those Vipers if he wants to trade against this army. And he's got to do that before the High Templar get out, because Harstem's shown time and time again he can hit those feedbacks consistently.
He really can. Once again, we do have a little bit of a Zealot counterattack here for Harstem, something he has shown a lot, as we've talked about, but not going to be able to do any damage this time around. Tefl, as you said, is going to have to control his army exceptionally well to really get anything done in this fight. The Templar are out, though. There's no Storm, so it's not like he has double the AoE damage, but the feedbacks on them, if the Vipers are out of position, he could feedback them. And actually, these Phoenixes could pick off a couple of Vipers if Tefl's not careful. He's going to try to go for it, but the Hydras are there to support.
Another Zealot Warp in from this Warp Prism, doing a lot at the third base of Tefl, having to bring back units to defend this. And what this is doing is allowing Harstem to gain more time to get more stuff out. But a good abduct on that Warp Prism tries to take it out, but there's no Hydralisk or anything there yet. Should get it this time. Alleviates that threat, but 2 abducts down to get 1 Warp Prism.
Not the most ideal, but it's important to just get rid of that Warp Prism, because now if Harstem wants to go for the Warp Prism, he's going to have to delay production of other robotics facility units. So at the very least, that's probably not going to be the case. So Tefl can be kind of confident that there's going to be no Warp Prism threat, but there are proxy pylons coming up in the top right. So Zealot run-bys could definitely still be on the cards here for Harstem, and knowing Harstem's play this weekend, I would not be at all surprised. Tefl is maxed out again, but Harstem is also at 190 supply, and Storm is almost done. This is where it becomes so difficult to actually engage this army, even with Vipers. It's just going to be so hard for Tefl to deal with this. There's nothing that trades well against Storm.
In we go now with some Roaches, with some Hydras, trying to get a good position, but Harstem coming from the side. Blinding Clouds being used rather than the Abducts, but there are the Storms, and they are getting so many of the Hydralisks taken out. Great feedbacks on the Vipers. 2 Abducts come down, but only 1 of the Colossus focused. Tefl losing the majority of his army here, and Harstem just defending it beautifully. Those Storms, amazing. Another Colossus dies, but overall, that trade heavily in the Protoss favor.
Because Harstem's been taking out the third base at the same time. These Zealots just are relentless, and third base is going to die by the looks of it. A lot of drones went down too. Tefl is really having a hard time here on Frost, as Harstem's just in such a good spot. Wow, Tefl hasn't started mining from these 2 gases until just now either, so his gas income has been a little bit stymied, and we can actually see that he has a large mineral bank, but no gas to actually support it. And from here, Harstem's on 4 base. Harstem has almost a 30 worker lead. He's got an actual supply lead as well, against a Roach-based composition. There's a lot of Roaches in here, which are very supply inefficient.
Oh, the 4th base. Yeah. Again, Zealot Warpins coming through, and this is where Harstem has shown time and time again this weekend that he can take some good control. Just consistently warping in these Zealots, harassing expansions, forcing a Zerg player to be back defending or losing them. And it buys him so much time. It puts him in an amazing spot. And Tefl is really in an awkward situation now on how he tries to get back into this game.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what Tefl should look for here, because, I mean, if he was going for Infestors, he could hope for some miracle Blinding Cloud fungal growth, you can't fight me moments.
Yep.
But he's not going for that because he can't really afford it. He doesn't have the gas, so he's sticking on the composition that he knows and loves so well, the Roach Hydra Viper, and he's good with that composition. But that composition is just not really good anymore at this stage of the game. Because there's just so much on the field here for Harstem. Harstem's army has 3 Colossi, 5 High Templar with Storms, 4 Phoenixes, which can also be used to zone out the Vipers a little bit. And then just like, I mean, a lot of the supply is tied up in Zealots. It's not going to do too much in the fight, but they're just keeping him home for so long. They're doing so much damage. This 4th base may well die to this next Zealot war. 4 DTs too.
There's no Overseers.
Wow.
There's no Overseers, and there's only 1 Spore Cooler at the natural base. There is so little detection. These DTs could do a devastating blow to our Zerg player. But engagement coming down at the 3rd of Harstem.
And the army's going to be forced back by just 1 DT. They can't fight into this. These 3 Zealots that I mentioned earlier will take out the 4th base. The 3rd base that's been reestablished also under fire by this 1 Templar, and 2 more Dark Templar coming into the natural too. There's just so much harassment coming down from Harstem. And at this point, Tefl's economy is just not really a thing anymore. He's got 34 drones against 85, and it's just going to be so difficult for him to ever max out again. He's going to try, but again, like the whole time that he's going to be spending trying to max out, Tefl is just perfecting his army composition more. Harstem is perfecting his army composition more and more. He can slowly start building up a bank as well. Things are just looking very, very good for our Dutch Protoss player. Oh, he's gonna get a Viper for free too. Oh, that hurts.
The gas income from Tefl just really isn't there, and he's so limited in options. Second Viper taking a bit of fire, but the Phoenix, of course, going over a pack of Hydralisks, get them taken out nice and fast. Harstem looking to secure a 5th base, and Tefl is just in a corner now where he's like, do I try and fight, knowing that I probably can't take the engagement, especially when I've only got 1 Viper and 44 Roaches? Or do I try and take some expansions, but then know that actually I don't have enough stuff to defend them?
Yeah, this is a really tough spot for Tefl, and he's not even re-expanding really, so this is a one-punch army. These DTs are going to be able to focus down the Spore. There is an Overseer though, so that's not the biggest of deals, but he's going to be able to get a couple of units for a trade. And at this point, Tefl just has this army. He must kill Harstem with this army. He's not going to be in a position where he can ever really remake his army. He's even going to lose his Hive to this DT eventually. There's just nothing there to defend
This
that.
should trigger Tefl to go.
Yeah, he has to go. There's a 5th base being established. Harstem is just... I mean, I understand why he doesn't want to go, because it's not really going to be easy to win this fight. He takes a big storm on the Roaches,
Oh, the
back
Viper.
on the Viper, another big storm on the Roaches. GG's called before the fight even happens, and Harstem ties it up at 2-2.
Well, nice work there by the Fnatic player, and this is turning out to be an insanely close best-of-7 finals, and that is really credit to both of these players. Exceptional plays from each of them in different games, and this may go all the way to the 7.
It may well do that, or the 6 in this case.
The 6.
But this has been a really good series so far. It's been really back and forth. The games, for the most part, the first game was kind of really one-sided
Yep.
in Harstem's favor. And then the second game was just really one-sided in Tefl's favor. But this one was a really close back and forth game, and Harstem kind of had it won about 5 minutes before the end of the game actually came around.
Yep.
But up until that point, it was very back and forth. It could definitely have gone either way. Some good plays out of both players. And the next map is going to be a bit of an unorthodox one. We're going to be going on to Merry-Go-Round, guys. This is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what they have to